I'm Shawn Childs of fantasyanalyst.substack.com, also on Fantasy on SI on Sports Illustrated. Been working both avenues and trying to build a fantasy career. So I'm still in Las Vegas. This is I'm actually helping somebody tonight. This is Wednesday night, and I did my second main event on Tuesday night live in Las Vegas. I think there was 4 online. And I did the first video, so I thought it was only fair to do the second one. And I had the same draft position. And like I said, a friend of mine wanted me to take Scooble instead of Skeens, and I wanted to stick to my guns and take Skeens and to I wanted to get Wyatt Langford and Alonso still, and I wanted to diversify a little bit of back end pitching. But you're always at the mercy of whoever's drafting, and people are going to make other decisions, and they're going to affect your decisions, and you're going to see what happens. So. Here's a look at the draft that I did. Just by looking at the owners, Nelson Souza, a longtime NFBC player, plays in a lot of football. Team 4, Mandini has had success there. Team 5, it was Ross Longwood was paired with a friend of his. I'm not too familiar with his partner, but plenty of experience. Met the guys at Team 7 before the draft. Don't know 6 online. The gentleman sitting to the right of me, I helped him in the ultimate auction, so his strategy was a little bit different than mine. Team 10, I've seen him do a couple auctions this year, and I didn't really look at his teams, but he's been doing leagues for a few years. And Team 11 is a veteran. I think Team Jung is a veteran too, as well. Dave Kashard has been an early member. 2004, he played leaderboard sports, kind of dropped off the face of fantasy sports for a little while. He's back. And Dave, less than Dave McDonald, or more than Dave McDonald, because he's definitely more than Dave. Was Team 14, experienced player, had a lot of success. And Team 15, I didn't know him at all. So, like I said, you're at the mercy. So when it comes to when I'm looking at this draft board, obviously you can see what the draft board already looks like. Team 7's on the clock, and I'm listening to them, and I can hear the chatter right away, Skeens or whatever. And I didn't intake. They told me they were from Louisiana area and in like Texas, and I just didn't tie it together that Skeens was a possibility at 7. But when they were discussing it, I know Skeens was a good chance to be gone. I said when I called out Scooble that I was going to stay on script. And if I had taken Tucker or any other hitter, my philosophy would have changed a lot. So I kind of brought me my friend back home was happy I took Scooble. So I took Tyree Scooble to stay with the same thought process. I had Skeens. Both players like him a lot. Just rated Skeens a little bit better for different reasons. Main thing was, Scooble pitched a lot more innings than the previous year, and I think that Skeens could be a horse this year. So I was able to execute the Wyatt Langford with Alonso combination. But when I was on the clock in the 3rd round, there was a good run of pitchers and some closers. And when I was on the clock, I actually sat there and I said that there's a good chance that maybe I should take C.J. Abrams because he'd be a good value in the 4th round, fit my structure. And one of the 2 power hitters, Alonso or Olsen, may slide to the middle of the 4th, and I feel like my structure would be a little more balanced. I get Langford, I get C.J. Abrams with potentially 40-plus steals, maybe even more, 20-plus home runs. We don't know what the batting average is, but top of lineup hitter. So anyways, I stuck to my guns. I thought Alonso was important. I'd take my chances. Abrams went by the end of the 3rd round, and then who walks down to me is Olsen. And I had Acuna was there too, and I drafted him the other one. Didn't think about him other than the other draft that I did in the main event. So I just decided to take the double power hitters, and I will try to figure out the speed. And it was challenging. It put myself behind in a lot of spots for what I wanted to do, and I had to be a little more creative. At the same time, I had to make sure I got the pitching. And what ended up happening is in the same team that took Skeens, Ryan Walker was the kind of the drop off for me at closer. All the other ones, Scott went off, Duran went off, and I did want Bryce Miller. And originally, I even considered if one of the power hitters was off and AJ Abrams was gone, that I would take a closer in the fourth, get ahead of it, and then take Bryce Miller. And he's a guy that I wanted to pair with Skeens. I liked him a lot. I thought he could progress this year in strikeouts. He threw the 180 innings or so, and I think he could get a little more length. But the closer was gone, so I had to punt saves in the fifth. Took Miller, my guy. Got a lot of home runs. Not enough speed. Well, we don't. I'm just in my head. I just think Langford's going to steal 20. Anything over that would be a bonus. When it comes back to the next round, and I'm looking at the players, and in this Albies guy that has haunted me in a couple of drafts, that he's made it to me again in the sixth. But McLean was a guy that had dual eligibility. He could hit 20 home runs. He could steal 30 bases. Cincinnati runs a ton. Maybe strikes out a little too much, but not really, really bad. But he kind of fit the profile where I'm going to get least speed from the middle infield position. So I decided to go there. And immediately, he pops up. He showed him at second base. I switched him to shortstop, knowing that he was more important to me at that position, even though he technically has more value at second base based on the structure of second baseman that comes out this year. Next round I came back and I took Hunter Brown. He was a guy that I was targeting. Pitched really well over the last 4 months last year, 2.51 ERA, strikeout was there, corrected his bad stats, and I really liked that he struggled and had the ability to get everything under control and showed promise at the end of the year. So his strikeout should be there, should get a little more length. If his ERA is 3.5 and his WHIP's 1.15 or a little bit higher, I can live with that because I'm gonna get the strikeouts and hopefully I get the edge by the Scooble. Same thing with Skeens, one of the front pitchers. So by doing this, I am now got my foundation, my first three pitchers, and I'm gonna just be aware of draft flows and kind of go from there. And just a little bit of side talk on this draft is that team number 15. When he came out and took Crochet and Wheeler, which was an interesting combination, but he also forced the pitching inventory, the starting pitching inventory a little bit, especially for anybody in the first round that was considering maybe Skeens or Scooble would slide to the back end, and they were kind of thinking about that plan. It changed a lot. So he takes double starters, but when he comes back in the third, fourth turn, he takes Luis Robert and Bellinger, which are two good players, but most of us in the NFBC probably know that he potentially could have got those players on the 5-6 turn, and Robert might be even a little later than that. So to me, as soon as he makes those picks, I'm like, this guy's a wild card in this draft. I don't know where he's going to go, and I'm going to have to react, and nothing I can do, but I just have to be aware. So we swing back. I take Hunter Brown. It's going away from me. My whole time I wanted to take Josh Lowe at round 8. I wanted to get in front of the left side of the draft board. I know Nelson has heard me talk about him and other people, and I just thought I wanted to get him at 8 instead of 9 in this draft. But when the guy took Zach Gallen in the 7th round, I was thinking this guy might snipe me and took Lowe. Like he might pull this out of his hat, if he's looking for an outfielder. And sure enough, he took him. And then my first instinct was going to take Pete Crow Armstrong as the next person that give me some home runs and steals. And Dave McDonald really was in the mercy of like the offensive players were too good when they flew the slid to him, so he had to change up his style. He ended up with two really good pitchers, Ray and Igmanaga, but I'm sure he would rather have had one other pitcher up front there. But anyway, so he takes Crow Armstrong, and now I'm looking at it and like, where am I going to go? I don't want to take Jason Dominguez from the Yankees because he didn't fit my thought process. You need some time and development. But the more I looked at it, when it slid to me, Christian Yelich was there, and I was like, you know what? This guy's probably a better profile for me. He's going to hit a little higher in the batting lineup. He's going to hit for a higher average. He can offset a little bit of Olson's in Alonso if they hit under 260, the league average, and bring it up a little bit. Even McLean, I'm not sure where his average is. So out of the gate, I was behind in batting average and behind in steals. Yelich helped me out a little bit there. Then it came back to the next round. I was just trying to stay in the flow. I was not going to take those secondary closers just to take saves. And what ended up happening is that I took Alcantara in the 9th round. I got a 4th really good pitcher. And when I get to the 10th round, I'm pretty much open to whatever is there. I could take a catcher, I could take a reliever, or I could take the best available player. I know for a fact that like second base is the players I like go a little bit later, so I'm not going to be interested in that. What ended up happening is that Riley Green slid to me, and he was a player that I thought could progress this year. Didn't give me a ton of speed, but he gave me some. And like I got a little bit of Yelich. Yelich could steal 30 if he stays on the field for the whole year. Pretty good runner, but Green could give me some, but he gives me a stable steals, and we'll see how his batting average, and we'll see if the Tigers line up. But he was a guy that I thought was like more of an eighth round pick, and he slid. And I don't tend not to be a value shopper. I try to stay on path what I'm doing, because when you take that extra hitter, put you behind somewhere. But because I didn't have a closer up front, I had the ability to make an adjustment, and that was I sacrificed the catcher position. And when it was coming back to me, the catcher that was there, let me just bring this up forward. Sorry. When it was coming back to me in the 11th round, I thought that Wells of Yankees, Austin Wells, would give me a little bit of steals from the catcher position. He might fit what I was trying to do. At the same time, I was searching around to see what kind of relievers were there and if there was somebody I was interested in. So Kyle Finnegan was a guy that got saves last year. He kind of stands out as nobody else really can knock him off the pedestal. Could get traded and could struggle, and they get some young guy in the minors, Susana or something like that, throws 100 miles an hour. He may emerge at some point during the year, but I got to get out of the gate. I got to get somebody. Estevez was a guy, and that went to Team 14. I guess he was a consideration, but he was a little nicked up with a back issue earlier. So I decided to take the closer, and then I was really, really focused on trying to get my offense back into position where I felt I was comfortable. I had four good starters. I had a somewhat of a closer, maybe get 25, 30 saves, and we'll see what happens. So Stott was an important person to me. Stole 30 bases last year, and I think the year before, close to that. So he moved me up in the steals, got me a little bit higher, fills the second base position. Came back and I jammed Mason Wynn. Should be back. And I think they said he's going to hit down the lineup right away, but he should work his way back in the lineup if he starts to play a little bit better. They said he was going to run more. He had 15 home runs last year, so the profile. So I end up getting three players potentially could get 90 steals in the middle infield, and I thought that went well. Kind of overcame some of the loss of Josh Lowe, and especially when you're adding in Yelich, and I missed on Abrams. But anyways, so when it came back to me. Same thing is that, they really didn't like the relievers. The catchers weren't there. I was considering the catcher from, where was he? The catcher for Herrera from St. Louis. He was kind of like the next guy. He would hit for batting average, but when I took Stott, he went on that round. So even if he made it back to me, I knew it was more important in this draft for me to get my speed in line and cover my power and worry about the catcher position later. So I probably couldn't have cleared him until maybe round 15 or 16 because I didn't have to have Strand, but I took the two power hitters, and I've been high on him, player of the year, projected for 30 home runs. And you know what? You bet your opinion and you shove on a guy you like. So Strand was, after I took Wynn, I took him. So it's pretty much who I was looking for there. And the same thing, I heard the gentlemen they were drafting and that took Skeens and picked 7, and they were picking one pick before me, and they were going down. They were looking in the third base list, and they weren't saying no names, but when they talk about the players, them well enough to know who they're describing, and they're like, this guy's too old, this guy, is hurt, and they just went through all the, a few players, and they were discussing them without saying the names, but. I know that Arenado was somebody that made it to me. To me, I wanted just somebody kind of steady, veteran player. And like I did in my other draft, I had him in there as well. And once I cleared that, those 4 players in a row, I felt pretty comfortable. The same thing, I'm kind of cheating the outfield position, but I have 3 here, but I don't have catchers. So I'm going to try to figure out the catcher position, and then I'm going to move back and try to address the back of my starting lineup. So I'm going to jump back to Team 15, who I was said was a wild card in this draft. Some of these players, when they play those early games, like to buy the stats. So he took Vesia in round, I think it was 14. He took Kiki Hernandez. and he took Birdie, and he took Knack, and he's taking all these players in the 20s to fill stats, but he's given up those players. And I know the legendary John Statmuller loves to buy those stats, but to me, it's more important to get the player. Obviously, it's a 26th to 30th round. You can flip them out, and it could be some other players you like, and it's depending on what you want. But I think every draft slot is important. But this guy ended up giving up some picks there for the quick 3-day run or 5-day run of his lineup. So I'm just wanted to describe that to me. So it came back to me. I took Dustin May. They ran the pitches off pretty good. I took best available guy with upside. Not sure he's going to kind of be a rotational guy at some point if they get all their pitchers back. But then I shifted back to AJ Puck. I did another draft for somebody else after this draft, and I had pick 7 or it was in the middle of the draft. But anyways, Puck went in the 12th round. He was a guy that people respected. Martinez goes a lot earlier, but Puck was really, really impressive at the end of last year. So he kind of made sense, but he also made sense within the rhythm of the structure I was trying to do. And very easily somebody could have plucked him off there, and I would have been searching for other relievers. But I think that was a pretty good value, a fair shake. I don't know where at the end of the year, does he get 15 saves, 10 saves, or 30 saves? We'll wait and see. I came back and took Brandon Woodruff. I was right in that pocket with the Verlander, Scherzer, and he's another veteran guy. So I took him first, and Scherzer went, and the Verlander all went in a row. I thought about all of them, but I know, in the last year the injuries were a factor, and both of them seem like they're trending this year. But I chose Woodruff, even though he's going to start the year and miss some time. I just think potentially he could. He's been a pretty good arm, and I'll take a shot with him. And then I came back with Francisco Alvarez. Same thing. I pushed him. I got him in the last draft, but this one I got him a little bit later because of the draft flow. I didn't have to force him, and so that's what I end up with. I took Matthew Void, just a steady arm pitching for the Cubs, kind of in the same position I did the last draft. Kind of covers me with Woodruff. I can have another starter in there. And in this draft, Team 5, I had talked to them on a break, and I had mentioned Romano, that I was even thinking about him and I'm not a fan of him at all this year. I think he's a good arm, but he's injury risk, and I didn't want to pay the price point. But I thought when he was there, if he made it to when I took Finnegan, that I would take a shot with him. But if I did, I would make sure I handcuffed him with Kerkering. But once he took him, Team 5 took him earlier. I'll look on the other draft without moving it. He took him in the where did he go? Let's see here. Romano in the coming down 10. So once he took him coming down 10, I knew that he was on that side of the board of me. So when it was going away from him, I had the ability to take another hitter, but I had to make sure I took Kerkering so he didn't have 2 picks if he wanted him. I didn't know for sure where he was going to take him, but he had to be interested, even though some other options are available in Philadelphia. So what ended up happening is some of the outfielders in this draft really, really slid, and I had a pretty good opportunity. And Alec Burleson was somebody, and I thought about Springer, and maybe if I did it different order and pushed Boyd back, I'm not sure Boyd would have made it, but I could have had a different option. But I'm not big in the Christopher Morel camp as far as chasing him down like earlier, but in the 21st round, he qualifies at second base, third base, and he's going to play outfield. So I have this guy that can potentially hit 30 home runs, 10 steals. He played pretty well last year for like 3 months, and then he was a complete dog. So when people are seeing his stats in 191, they're kind of the dog part of the season is priced in his batting average, but his other stats are okay. So he can be hard or cold, but I thought as an outfielder, and he would give me a little speed, he was worth taking a shot on, even though I wasn't positioned to have a better batting average. So I took him, came back and took Kerkering in the round that I wanted. I didn't even look up to see Team 5 to see if they were interested, but just the way it breaks. And then I took Nolan Jones, got traded to Cleveland, a guy that should give some speed, should be better, but I don't like the change in ballpark. But based on the price of him going 16th, 17th round earlier, even in the like the Draft Champions League, he was like 18 to 20 maybe, and now I'm getting him in the 23rd round or something like that, and he's my fourth outfielder. I believe he's my fourth outfielder on this team. No, yeah, he's my fifth outfielder on this team. Sorry, because I took Green earlier, so I thought I had a pretty good core. And then the next round, when I get to the reserve round, and Jones was going away from me, so going towards the high end. When it came back to me, I really wanted Vargas again, and I should have known I was kind of sketchy at outfield. But I had this thing this, I guess it's from Dexter, this dark passenger in the back of my mind, talking like Turkelson. He could play in the outfield if he got outfield eligibility. He'd be helpful. So I took a flyer on him, even though I have the first base, corner, and utility positions balked. But he also gives me insurance in case Encarnacion Strand, maybe starts slow out of the gate. So I took him for the power, where I think Vargas was a guy that I liked more, who would have been a little more rotational, and he also would qualify at third base. And they kind of ran the pitchers off. I thought I had enough starters. And because they left so many catchers on the board, I decided to, take Murphy as a second catcher. They didn't, Team 14 needed two catchers, and he didn't take Bailey. He went from Amaya of the Cubs. So when it came back to me, I was, you know what? I'm going to cover my first catcher with him. I also had Andy Rodriguez in my thought process, but he went around 22 a lot earlier, and I actually thought he was more viable because he was already made the team. I actually would have preferred to have him over Murphy as a second catcher, but that's just not the way it broke. So then it came back to me after I took Bailey. I said, you know what? I'm going to cover my other catcher with Goodman and fill out my last couple spots with pitchers and see what happens. So I covered those. Goodman can drop in the outfield if I get caught, and then I can make a decision in 2 to 4 weeks and rotate those guys. And if I got to punt one of the catcher positions to pick up another player and take a zero for a week, I'm okay with that. So I'll have somebody in there for 3 days. I'll evaluate on the waiver wire, and then I'll pick up somebody else. Came back with Reed Detmers. I know most people wouldn't be interested in him because he's in the bullpen, but I do think he has an upside arm there. Came back with Alexis Diaz, obviously closing experience, a guy that was going in, top 12 rounds, got a hamstring, really cloudy. Other people going to get saves, but based on the price point, I took a shot on him. And then I took Tommy Pham as another outfielder, and I believe I have to trying to think here. So Langford, Yelich, Green, and then Nolan Jones, and what was the other outfielder I had? Oh, until Christopher Morel qualifies in the outfield, I had to slide somebody in. So I just took Pham. There was a couple I could take Benintendi or somebody else. So that was the plan for Pham. I know people are going to say he's going to bat leadoff. Not so much of a target to me, but he could be helpful, could help him bat an average and stuff like that. So in the end, I cheated the second catcher position. The second closer position. I have two AJ Puck and Kerkering. I have a couple shots. I got Diaz maybe in a month out. We'll see what happens there. He didn't look good in spring training, but he's got a little more season to go with there. See if he can write it and get better at maybe the last 4 months of the year. And then I'll need another pitcher. I can clean out my catchers, and then I'll have to work on my batting average. So a little weak in batting average. I wasn't that far off in steals. I would have preferred to get Frelick on this team because it gave me another outfielder. And the other, the Washington outfielder, Young, got drafted, I think before I was willing to do him. So he wasn't a factor, and he's more of a guy that I would have put on the bench for speed and not be a full-time player in my lineup. So, a couple of mistakes on my decision-making. Vargas I could have taken instead of Turkelson. Potentially could have had Frelick instead of, going for the Christopher Morel. But, we'll see how that shakes out. Overall, this league, it was definitely a different draft. There was a lot of value in hitting. Pitching got pushed up, and I really think that Team 15, really was kind of a wild card where he looked like he took players that were pretty good for about 8 rounds, and then he got off track and didn't fill his roster well enough to be a competitive team. And we'll see how it does, how he does on the waiver wire and stuff like that. But I didn't really look at a lot of the other teams that close. Obviously, I'm looking at the people sitting next to me. but it should be an interesting draft. So that's how it worked out. Didn't get the Skeens, but School Bowl combination, and it didn't break perfectly. But I wish it was that easy to get the players you like. And even if you get the players you like, it's not a guarantee they're gonna play up to your expectations. So that's my second main event. And I did one more after from the 8-9 position, and I'll talk about that one as well, maybe tomorrow, and I'll push that out too as well. That broke really good for 4 rounds, and then you make one detour, and it just makes you kind of chasing it. So that's all I have for this one. Thanks.